I'm here with retired coach Jim Kearney of Marquette High School. Jim is a Marquette High School Hall of Fame coach and Wisconsin Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame, and certainly a coach of huge success over his career. Jim, can you talk about your journey into running and coaching cross country, your beginning into the running world, and then your early coaching experiences?
Well, when I first started out, I was a football coach and hockey. And I thought runners were goofy. I was coaching for a while or teaching for a while at Washington High School, and Dan McKinney was the cross country and distance coach in track, and he was very successful. But I still thought those guys were goofy because of the way they ran and how far they ran. Well, I ended up at university school after about 4 years at Washington, and they coerced me into coaching cross country my very first year.
What years were those?
That was 79.
Okay.
And I knew nothing about cross country. When the guys got together that first day, I said, "What do you normally do?" He said, "Well, we got a 1.5 mile loop." I said, "Well, go run it." And then they came back, and I said, "How do you feel?" They said, "Feel pretty good." I said, "Well, go run it again." So off they went. When they got back, they said they felt tired. I said, "Well, go home." I went home and called Dan and said, "Help!" But after a bit, I really came to admire those guys. I still was not going to run with them. I was overweight and smoking. I was no way, shape, or form going to run. And then, so I was coaching in university school, and after a couple of years, these scrawny little 14-year-olds coerced me into running. So that summer, I decided I'll give them a mile a day. That's going to be it. So that summer, I ran a mile a day in basketball shoes. And the next summer, I ran a 10K, and the next summer, I ran a marathon. I got absolutely hooked. My wife, at first, complained about how much time I spent at it. Then after my personality mellowed out, I'd be sitting around the house getting ugly, and she'd say, "You got to go out for a run." So, and I ran for 20 years, and I miss it every day.
Well, I remember running with you, against you, whatever. Probably there were 2,500 people that ran the firecracker 4 miles.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
and seeing you down there, and and the camaraderie afterwards it was so cool. But that was when you had two good knees, I think, at that point.
Ironically, the knee went due to an old high school football injury. And I never enjoyed high school football. So.
Well, then didn't you convert into being a biker?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And now I'm a walker. One of the things that I really was taken with running is the clarity of thinking when you're on a run. Go out the door with this insurmountable problem on your mind. In the middle of the run, you've forgotten about it, and all of a sudden there's a solution. And you can't figure how you didn't think of it before. And I really miss that. You dare not do that on a bicycle. So I took up walking, and it's not the same, but it's closer. So.
Well, after, let's see, now you're university school at 79, right?
Yeah.
And then And you were there
From 70 to 79.
Oh, 70 to 79.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry. I was
Yeah.
there 70 to 79, and then Marquette from 79 to 2018. So,
What about your teams at university school?
well, we did well. I mean, I was looking for a job in Minnesota, and finally ran across a school that wanted an English teacher who could coach cross country. Well, I had 15 years experience, a master's degree, and 3 straight state championships in cross country. And I heard from them in June that they had filled the position. But by that time, I'd already signed with Marquette, so it turned out to be great anyway. So things went well at university school. We had a very, very good program there.
Now, they were a smaller or Division II school? Or was that
3.
Oh, Division III. Okay.
Yeah, they were small. There were 200 boys in the school. But
I imagine, but from what I know of that school, they're high academic, high achieving, probably high goal setters.
yeah.
And then you went to Marquette,
I
and
did.
what is a school of 2000 maybe, or not?
Yeah, I was 1700 when I got there, and stayed pretty much there for a long time. And of course, it was all boys, my first situation with that. But I knew after my 3rd day that that's where I belonged. I was very aware of it. I think I'd been heading in that direction my whole life. All the way from small town in northern Minnesota. So,
Now you had a streak. I know I tried to look up some data. It wasn't easy to find, but didn't you have a streak of like about 6 straight state championships or something?
well, in the 19 years when I was at Marquette and we were in WISA, we had 11 state championships, and the other 8 years, we placed second. So, yeah, we did well.
Now, I obviously we competed at Arrowhead. We competed against you those years, and now I remember a guy named Jeremy Gintoff and Liam. I forget his last name.
O'Neill.
Yeah, I mean you had some really
Yeah.
really good individuals as well as just great teams.
Yeah. So that's another thing I like about runners. In my entire, however many years it is that I've been associated with runners, it's over 40, and coaches, I've known maybe 3 jerks. You can't walk into a hockey locker room without finding that many in there. And hockey players will agree with that. And very, very focused people. I mean, the number of people, for example, that I had on disciplinary, or not disciplinary, but academic probation the whole time, nil. These are very responsible people. So, there's a whole lot of things to recommend runners. I fell in love with it. I just did.
Well, and you had now was Dan Clary one of your runners as well as an assistant coach for you, or
He was. He was in track. I coached track in 1980 at Marquette. I didn't coach cross country. Well, I had an assistant cross country coach the following year. So he was a freshman my first year there. And so for those first 4 years, he ran either on track or cross country and track. So and now he's, of course, the head coach at Marquette. So
Well, you got to feel good that it's you what I want to say trained or
oh yeah,
mentored someone to.
yeah, he went into banking and then decided to go back into teaching. So he's a math teacher, and then got wrapped up in the cross country program, of course. So
What from the early years of coaching, I think the Lydiard system was starting to kind of evolve on there, and then you'd hear about the Oregon, which was really a derivative of Lydiard, but how things were, and I mean you've been through the whole rainbow, so to speak. I mean, just from development of running shoes and training systems and everything else.
yeah, when I started running was when we had the first running shoes. There was no such thing before that except those flat things that you use for track, But funny you mentioned Lydiard. I went to a clinic, it's a track clinic, at the University of Indiana, and he was the keynote. And I got a chance to talk to him for an hour or two by myself. And he really had a lot to do with how I dealt with things from that point on. I really thought he was a bright guy, and he's down to earth, and I mean, he was coaching, I should say, world-class people. So he was terrific. And I learned a lot from him. But then at that time, too, I read every issue of Runner's World from cover to cover. And I picked up whatever I could and applied it to my own program. And eventually, what I had was my own conglomeration of influences that I'd picked up here and there, and the stuff I'd learned on my own, So I don't go by any book. I never did. I learned from people, mostly, and from reading, and from coaching. So
Well, that's something to be able to say one of the godfathers, or maybe the godfather of distance running, to have had that opportunity.
yeah, that was fortunate, quite.
And then I mean, just I think back, and it's not all that long ago, that even just like meet administration technology, and the chip timing, and we used to mail in entries and all. I mean, all the things that coaches now take for granted. It wasn't. I think it was about 17, 18 years ago that the WIA first just went to chip timing, and before that, it was like that mosh pit of a finish line. And
Yeah, I used to get splits of kids, and which meant I was standing with a stopwatch, reading the splits as the kids went past, to somebody standing next to me with a clipboard, and trying to get them all on that clipboard as they went by. Same with track. And then one of the kids at university school developed a computer program to do most of the work for me. I mean, I still had to get all the splits, but all I had to do was enter them in this program, and I was still using it when I retired. And it would print out everything, something way beyond my capabilities.
Well, I mean, I think the feedback that athletes now get, about a race, it's not like your 10th place and 17:25 is your time. I mean, you get all this information.
Yeah.
State meet. There is, at the 1 mile mark, this is your time. This is your place at 2 miles and so forth on there. And in fact, that feedback now is, you can take your cell phone and get live updates and see how
Yeah.
really what place your team is. It's
Yeah, this program even recorded feeds, so you could compare 1 mile to the next. So when you evaluate your race, you know what mile you need to work on. That kind of thing. So I finally looked at the way that the NCAA people run their races, and the best ones run even splits through the race. And I found that works very well because, in most cases, the second mile is slower than the first and the third. And I think it's more psychological than it is physical. But started using even splits and encouraging even splits, and things got a lot better. So there's always something to learn, And the kids even. You take this or that kid. I mean, you've got a different story there. And you really got to get to know those kids. Because, I mean, what they're doing is unusual. Let's put it this way. I think cross country is pure sport. The purest sport there is. How many people you hear say, we're going to go out and play cross country? Nobody plays cross country. It is sport. There's no game about it. And it takes some serious learning from the beginning of your career to the end. You're always learning more and more about yourself and more about the sport. There is so much to it. It's really admirable. It really is.
What do you want to speak a little bit about? Was a runner like Jeremy Gintoff, was he like undefeated the whole season, and Liam and
No, they weren't. I think Jeremy was his senior year, but Jeremy, this is a case in point. Jeremy had a history of getting injured. And he oftentimes would spend a good amount of the season in a swimming pool, doing his workouts there. And one time I was talking to his mother, and she said the same thing happened in 8th grade or 7th grade basketball tryouts. And the light went on. So the whole approach to Jeremy from that point on was different. And I finally told him at one point, one of these insights that all of a sudden happens. I said, look, Jeremy, how many guys on this team are going to get us 2, 3, 4 points? None of them. You're the only one that can. So if you win, you win. But if you take 4th, okay, fine. He never lost again. He never got injured again. And Liam O'Neill, his senior year, conference meet, he was on the line with a PR that nobody on that line could match within a minute. And he was throwing up on the starting line. And I started laughing, and he started laughing while he was doing it.
He was thrown up from nerves.
Yes!
Yeah.
Yes! And he won by a minute. But he was just always that way, so it took a lot of talking with him. And strategically talking about his races and things. And that's when I, somewhere along the line there, I ran across a book called Progressive Relaxation, written by a coach down in Illinois. And I started using it. And it really had a focus on rehearsing the race. And I started using it myself. Tell you a story. Samson Stomp, 10K at that time. And I was going to run it. So I sat down every evening for the week before and planned that race out virtually step by step. Two things happened. One, we got snow the night before. They had snowed the course but left about that much on it, so every time you towed off you slipped a little bit, which affected everything. And I had not, the thing finished up running up a hill from Wisconsin Avenue to Blue Mound and into the zoo. So my plan was to take off as soon as I got inside that zoo. But I had miscalculated how long and how steep that hill was. So that plus the snow, I got to thinking on the way up that hill, well, I'll wait till I'm down another couple hundred meters before I take off. Well, I got inside the zoo fence there, the gate, and I just took off. And I thought, what's going on here? I figured, well, I've done it, I might as well go. And that was all a matter of that rehearsal. I had convinced myself that that was what's going to happen, and my body just took off because of that. And I beat people I'd never beaten before in that race. So that just absolutely sold me on rehearsing your races. There is so much to this sport.
Oh, it is. It's 100% physical, 100% mental.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's certainly all of that.
Yep, I've used that phrase many times.
What now? And I'm trying to think. Jake. Why can't I think of Jake's last name? That was, and he was
Urshan?
Urshan. Yes. Was he runner-up twice, or?
He was in third place his senior year. Here's another story.
And this is WIA, so
Yeah.
you know it was.
Yeah, we ran the Wisco meet, which is 2 weeks before state. It's a week before sectionals. And Jake, Marcus, what was his name?
Marcus Paulson. Yeah.
Was in the race. And Jake beat him pretty handily. He took off with about a half mile to go, and Marcus decided that was too early, and Jake kept it up, and he won. So I was at the half mile mark at the state meet, and here he is with Marcus Paulson and another guy. And I said, time to go, Jake, and he didn't. So I asked him afterwards, why didn't you take off at that point? I mean, you've beaten him before doing that. And it was the state meet. He said, I was scared. I said, okay. That happens.
Yeah, how many people like to have that do-overs on those? But
Yeah. And he ended up running at the UW, so doing well up there. Paulson went to Minnesota.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Now you had huge teams when you were at Marquette. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse both. I know we had large teams at Arrowhead, but I mean, you were 100 plus regularly.
the largest team we had was 177. That was, but I had a lot of coaches too. So we would split everybody into groups, and every coach was responsible for his own group. So,
But that has to. I mean, even the kids that are the 24-minute 5Ks, they're still sharing in all of the lessons that are learned, achievements that they have, the PRs, and
that's a nice thing about the sport. Everybody's paying the same price, no matter how fast you are or how slow you are. You're paying the same price. Mentally, physically, everything. It's not easier for the faster guys.
other thoughts that you have. Now you're completely retired. I mean, did you come around just occasionally in the last couple of years?
Last
Helping
year
out?
I did occasionally,
Uh-huh.
but that was meets. The year before I helped out as an assistant because that's when my wife was sick. But no, I'm completely retired now. The thing is, I dream about it.
Well, I'm sure you got to look back on it with a lot of pride, though, and
Oh yeah. And you make so many friends. I mean, it's coaches that you ran against. It's not like other sports where they're your enemy. No. You become friends, in spite of the fact you're competing against each other regularly. I've got two groups of people I go out with for dinner or lunch on a regular basis. And both of them are coaches that I used to compete against. It's a unique sport.
it sure is. Well, thanks.
And the number of friends you make as runners too. I mean, I can't even count the number that I still see and occasionally go out with, and it's always, whenever you see them, it's excitement, You're glad to see them. They're glad to see you.
Well, I've always admired you so much. I got to tell you that. That's been.
Oh, thanks.
You've been a mentor or just a goodwill ambassador to so many coaches and everyone around the state, and that's a big reason I wanted to have an interview with you and just some of your thoughts on just an awesome career. So.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, thanks so much for doing this, and we hope to have this up on YouTube in a short time.
Okay. Well, let me know. I'll look for it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim.